Widowed black mom with twins left with $5 inheritance. Next day, lawyer drove her to a hidden estate. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into this incredible story. Lila had always believed in the power of hope. She wasn't rich, but she had the kind of love that could fill a house. A widowed mother of twins, she had spent the last several years raising her children, trying to make ends meet. Her husband's sudden death had left a gaping hole in their lives. When Lila went to the lawyer's office to handle her late husband's estate, she had no idea what to expect. She sat across from the lawyer, a man who wore a face of indifference, his eyes scanning papers as though he couldn't care less about her troubles. "I'm sorry, Lila," he said coldly. "It appears your husband left you an inheritance of only $5. Lila's heart sank. $5? She had hoped for more, perhaps not millions, but at least enough to make a fresh start. She could barely hold back the tears as the lawyer handed her the paperwork, her hands trembling. What kind of legacy was this for her children? As she walked out of the office, the weight of her situation felt unbearable. She had nothing. No money. No plan. No hope. How could she raise her twins with just $5 to her name? She felt invisible, like the world was closing in around her. But just as she was about to get into her old, beat-up car, a sleek black car pulled up in front of her. The lawyer's assistant stepped out, a man she didn't recognize. "Lila," he called out, his voice smooth and urgent. "We need you to come with us. There's more you need to see." Confused, Lila hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. Was this some kind of joke? Was she about to be scammed? But the man's expression was sincere, and something told her this wasn't over. He led her to the car, and the moment she got inside, the door clicked shut behind her. The drive was long, and Lila felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Where was he taking her? She kept looking at the scenery outside the window, passing houses, empty fields, and then an eerie quiet surrounded them. Finally, they reached a secluded estate, hidden away from the city. It was a mansion, grand and imposing, but its isolation made it feel almost abandoned. The man led her inside, where she was greeted by a few other individuals, people who didn't look like they belonged to this world of wealth and luxury. They were waiting for her, waiting for Lila. She was still in shock, struggling to process what was happening. And then it hit her. This wasn't just any estate. This was the estate her late husband had kept hidden. This was the real inheritance. And now it was hers. I had no idea what to expect as Lila stepped out of the car and walked toward the grand estate. The mansion stood before her like something out of a dream, its high gates and long driveway leading up to a large, imposing front door. She looked back at the assistant, who nodded and gestured for her to follow him. Inside, the air was cool, the quiet unsettling. The house was extravagant, with towering ceilings and rooms that seemed to stretch on forever. It was filled with dark wood paneling, fine artwork, and vintage furniture that looked as though it had been preserved for generations. Lila's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to process what was happening. She felt small and out of place in this world of luxury and secrecy. As she walked through the house, the assistant led her to a room at the back, where a group of well-dressed individuals stood waiting. They were all looking at her, their eyes expectant. She was introduced to each of them, but their names meant little to her. They weren't her family, and she didn't recognize any of them. Yet, there was a feeling of familiarity about them that made her feel as though they knew more than they were letting on. The moment the door closed behind her, Lila was left standing in the middle of the room, her mind racing. What was this place? Why was she here? And why had her late husband kept this hidden from her? The assistant spoke again, breaking the silence. "Lila, you are now the sole heir to this estate," he said, his voice calm, almost too calm. "This house, along with the land it sits on, is yours." Lila's head spun. She had come here expecting to learn about some hidden debt or complication, but this was unimaginable. "I don't understand," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Why didn't he tell me about this?" The assistant smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Your husband kept this secret from everyone, including you. He wanted to make sure that when the time came, you would have a place to start over, a place that could protect you and your children. But he didn't want anyone to know about it, at least not until now. Lila's mind was reeling. She had lost everything, her husband, her stability, and even her faith in what life had in store for her. But this was a gift she had never asked for, a gift that felt far too big for her to accept. "But I don't know how to live here," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't belong in a place like this. I don't even know what to do with all of this." The assistant looked at her with a mix of sympathy and something else, something she couldn't quite place. "You don't have to do this alone. There are people here to help you. This estate isn't just a house. It's a legacy that has been passed down for generations, waiting for someone with the strength to carry it forward." Lila looked at the grand house, the place that was now hers. But even as she felt overwhelmed, a small spark of hope flickered in her chest. Maybe this was the fresh start she had been praying for. Maybe this estate could be more than just a building. Maybe it could become the foundation for something new, something better. The assistant handed her a set of keys, and as she held them in her hand, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the decision she was about to make. She could either leave this place behind, feeling unworthy of it, or she could take control and step into the life her husband had meant for her to live. The choice was hers, but she couldn't ignore the feeling that everything had changed. Her journey was just beginning, and this estate, this home, was going to be the starting point of a new chapter. Little did Lila know, the people in the room, and even the very land she stood on, held secrets that would soon change everything. But for now, she could only focus on the next step. It was time to figure out how to make a life out of this unexpected inheritance. Lila stood in the grand foyer of the estate, her eyes scanning the towering walls and the expensive furniture. Everything in this house screamed wealth, but it felt more like a cage than a home. She could hear the soft footsteps of the assistant behind her as he moved through the halls, waiting for her to say something, anything. But she couldn't. Her mind was still racing, trying to make sense of everything. She had inherited a mansion, a legacy, a life she never expected, yet it all felt too heavy. She wasn't sure how to move forward. "Take a deep breath," the assistant said, sensing her unease. "This is yours now. You don't have to figure everything out in one day." Lila nodded, trying to calm herself. She thought about her twins, their small faces full of curiosity. They were still so young, only 6 years old, and yet they had already been through so much. The loss of their father, the struggle of seeing their mother overwhelmed, and now this, an inheritance that didn't feel like a gift, but a burden. "What am I supposed to do with all of this?" Lila whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't belong here." The assistant smiled, but there was something bittersweet about it. "You do belong here, Lila. Your husband made sure of it. He knew this would be the place where you could start over." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But remember, this estate is not just about money or property. It's about the people, the connections, and what you choose to do with it. It's a foundation, and you have the power to decide what kind of legacy you want to create." Lila looked around the room, her heart heavy. She wasn't sure she could do it. She wasn't sure she even wanted to. But something inside her stirred. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe this was her moment to change everything for herself and her children. The assistant continued, "We've already taken the liberty of setting up a few things for you. Staff to help around the estate, security, all the basics. But the real work starts now. You'll need to meet with the board of trustees. They're the ones who oversee the foundation your husband created. They'll help you navigate all of this." Lila's stomach turned at the thought. A board? She didn't know the first thing about running a foundation, let alone a mansion. "I don't know if I can do it," she admitted. "I barely know how to survive from day to day." "You don't have to do it alone," the assistant said. "You have a team, and you have a legacy. Your husband built this with you in mind, Lila. You just need to step into it." Those words echoed in her mind as she walked through the halls, trying to find a way to come to terms with the life that had been thrust upon her. She had always been strong, always fought for her children. But now, she was facing something much bigger than she ever imagined. The thought of leading this estate, of taking control of her late husband's vision, made her feel small and insignificant. But she knew she couldn't just walk away. Her twins needed her, and so did this estate. She had to find a way to make it work. As Lila walked into the study, The weight of her husband's belongings felt suffocating. His books, his papers, everything he had left behind. All of it was a reminder that she wasn't in control. Not yet. She sat down at the desk, running her fingers over the papers. She could feel the burden of responsibility pressing down on her chest. The board of trustees was scheduled to meet with her the next day. She had no idea what they expected from her, but she couldn't afford to back down now. She had to find her strength, for her twins, for herself, and for the legacy her husband had left behind. The sound of her twins' laughter echoed from the hallway, a small reminder that no matter how daunting this all felt, she still had a purpose. She still had a family to care for. And somehow, she would figure this out. She had no choice. She would take this unexpected inheritance and turn it into something meaningful, not just for her, but for her children and the people her husband had cared for. This estate wasn't just a home. It was a new beginning, a chance to rise from the ashes. And Lila was ready to take that first step. Lila sat in the grand dining room of the estate, her fingers tracing the edges of the ornate table, the sound of her twins' laughter echoing from the hallway. The day had finally come for her to meet with the board of trustees. The weight of the moment pressed down on her chest as she prepared for the meeting that would determine her future. Her mind raced with uncertainty. She had no experience with running a foundation, let alone managing a legacy of this magnitude. But one thing was clear. This estate, this life, was now hers, and she had to figure out how to make it work. The estate was no longer just a mansion with fine furniture and vast gardens. It had become a symbol of both opportunity and responsibility. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, Lila took a deep breath, standing up from the table and walking toward the grand foyer where the board members would arrive. Her twins were playing outside, their laughter providing a small moment of peace amidst the chaos. She couldn't let them see her anxiety. She had to be strong for them, as she always had been. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke her thoughts, and her heart began to race. The trustees had arrived. Lila straightened her dress and walked toward the door, opening it to find the group of well-dressed, stern-faced individuals standing outside. Each of them looked like they belonged in this world, calm, collected, and confident. They were the ones who had been managing her husband's foundation before her. Now, they were here to meet with her. Mrs. Thompson, one of the trustees, greeted her, his voice firm but polite. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you. We've heard a great deal about you." Lila nodded, feeling a wave of nerves wash over her. "Please, come in," she said, stepping aside to allow them into the house. The room grew quiet as the group settled in. Lila could feel the tension in the air. They were expecting something from her, something she wasn't sure she could give. The lead trustee, a woman named Caroline, looked at Lila with a sharp gaze. "We understand your situation, Mrs. Thompson, and we want to assure you that we're here to support you. However, we also need to know what your plans are for the foundation and the estate." Lila swallowed hard. The pressure was mounting. I'm not sure," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm still trying to process everything. I've never been involved in anything like this before. My husband kept so much from me. I don't know what's expected of me." Caroline nodded, her expression softening for a moment. "We know this is a lot for you to take in, but your husband left this estate in your care. It's now your responsibility to uphold his vision for the future." Lila's heart pounded in her chest. She was overwhelmed, but she couldn't show weakness. She had to take control. "I understand," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I will do my best to honor my husband's legacy. I just need guidance, someone to help me figure this out." Another trustee, a man named Richard, spoke up. "We can help with that, Mrs. Thompson, but we need you to make decisions." The foundation was built on very specific principles, helping underprivileged communities, funding educational programs, supporting families in need. Your husband worked tirelessly to build something meaningful. Now it's your turn to lead. Lila felt a knot form in her stomach. This wasn't just about managing a house. This was about managing a mission, a purpose. She had spent her entire life fighting to provide for her children, to make sure they had everything they needed. Now, it seemed that responsibility had grown tenfold. "I can't do this alone," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I need a team, people who understand how to make this work." Caroline smiled, nodding. "That's exactly why we're here. We'll guide you every step of the way, but you must take the first step." Lila looked around the room, feeling the weight of their expectations. For the first time in her life, she realized that she was in control. The decisions she made from this point forward would shape the future of the estate, the foundation, and her family. She could no longer run from the responsibilities that had been thrust upon her. But in that moment, something changed inside her. She had always been a fighter, and now, she was fighting for something greater than herself. The foundation wasn't just about money or power. It was about helping people, about making a difference. And she was ready to step up. "All right," she said, standing taller now. "Let's get to work." The meeting continued, but Lila's resolve was set. She would honor her husband's legacy, and she would make sure this estate served the community he had always believed in. The road ahead would be long, but for the first time in a long while, Lila felt like she had a purpose. This was just the beginning. Lila woke up early the next morning, her mind already racing with everything she had to do. She had barely slept, her thoughts consumed by the foundation, the estate, and the people she now had to lead. She stood in front of the large window of her bedroom, looking out at the sprawling grounds of the estate. The morning sun bathed the lawns in golden light, but it didn't bring her peace. It only reminded her of the magnitude of what she was about to face. The sound of her twins playing outside broke through her thoughts, and she couldn't help but smile for a moment. No matter how overwhelming everything felt, they were still her heart, her reason for moving forward. After a quick breakfast, Lila prepared herself for the next meeting with the Board of Trustees. This time, it was her turn to take control, to make decisions that would shape not only her future, but the future of the foundation her husband had created. As she walked into the meeting room, she noticed the same group of trustees seated at the table. Their expressions were a mix of expectation and curiosity, as though they were waiting to see what direction she would take. Lila felt the weight of their gazes, but she stood tall, her shoulders back, determined to make her mark. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady. "I know this is a lot for me to take on, but I am ready to lead. I need your help, but I also need your trust. I want to make sure that my husband's vision for this estate and the foundation is honored, but I also want to make it my own. I believe we can do more than what has been done before." Caroline, the lead trustee, looked at Lila with approval. "That's exactly what we need, Mrs. Thompson. We need someone who is willing to step up, someone with a vision. Your husband built this foundation for a reason, and it's up to you to carry it forward. But don't be afraid to make it your own. This is your legacy now, and it's about more than just maintaining what he built." Lila nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. This was what she needed to hear. She wasn't just stepping into her husband's shoes. She was creating her own path, one that would be guided by the principles he believed in, but also shaped by her own ideas and values. "I want to focus on programs that help single mothers and children," Lila continued. "My husband always believed in giving people the chance to build a better life, and I want to carry that forward. We have the resources here, but we also have a responsibility to use them wisely." Richard, another trustee, raised an eyebrow. "What exactly do you have in mind, Mrs. Thompson?" "I've been thinking about how we can expand the educational programs that your foundation already supports," Lila explained. "But we need to reach more people. I want to partner with local schools, offer scholarships, and create a mentoring system for children in need. But I also want to support the mothers who are struggling to make ends meet. We can offer them job training, financial planning, and childcare services. This estate has the potential to be more than just a place for the rich. It can be a place where people can transform their lives." The trustees exchanged glances, and for a moment, Lila wondered if they would reject her ideas. But Caroline smiled and nodded. "That's a good vision, Mrs. Thompson. It's ambitious, but we believe in your ability to make it work." The meeting continued, and by the time it ended, Lila felt more confident than ever. She had a clear vision for the future and the support of the trustees behind her. But she knew this was just the beginning. There was a lot of work to be done, and she had to stay focused. As she walked out of the room, Lila's heart swelled with determination. She had taken the first step toward building something meaningful. She wasn't just the widow of a wealthy man anymore. She was the leader of a foundation that had the power to change lives. It wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face the challenges ahead. She had a purpose now, and nothing was going to stand in her way. The rest of the day was spent organizing the plans for the upcoming programs and meeting with the staff. Lila was exhausted, but she couldn't ignore the fire inside her. She had always been a fighter, and now, she had something worth fighting for. As the evening settled in, Lila looked out the window again, this time with a sense of pride. The estate wasn't just a mansion, it was a symbol of hope, a place where families could rebuild their lives. And she was going to make sure it fulfilled its true potential. Lila stood in the middle of the estate's grand hallway, her eyes scanning the rooms around her. It had been a few weeks since the meeting with the board of trustees, and things were moving faster than she could have imagined. Her vision for the foundation was taking shape, and the staff had been hard at work, planning and organizing the first set of programs. As she walked through the corridors, Lila couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. But she also knew that she was just getting started. There were challenges ahead, challenges that would test her leadership and resolve. The weight of the responsibility still hung heavy on her shoulders, but every day, she grew more confident in her ability to handle it. That afternoon, she had a meeting with the board to review the progress of the new programs. She felt ready, but there was a nagging feeling in the back of her mind. What if they didn't approve of the changes she was making? What if they thought she was in over her head? Lila pushed those thoughts aside as she made her way to the conference room, where the board was already gathered. Caroline, the lead trustee, greeted her with a smile. "Good to see you, Mrs. Thompson. We're eager to hear about the updates on the programs you've been working on." Lila smiled, feeling the nerves fade away. "Thank you, Caroline. I've been working closely with the team, and I believe we're ready to move forward. We've already started reaching out to local schools, and the mentorship program is coming together nicely. I've also spoken with a few organizations that can help us provide job training and childcare services for the single mothers we want to support." As she spoke, Lila felt a sense of accomplishment. These were the changes she had envisioned, and they were starting to come to life. Caroline nodded, impressed. "This is exactly the kind of direction we needed. But tell us more about the funding. How do you plan to allocate the resources for these new initiatives?" Lila took a deep breath. She knew this was the crucial part of the discussion. The foundation had the potential to do a lot of good, but it needed the financial backing to make it sustainable. "We've already secured a portion of the budget for the new programs," Lila explained. "But I want to ensure that we're using our funds efficiently. We're exploring partnerships with other organizations, and we're planning to host fundraising events to generate additional support. We also have the option of tapping into some of the estate's assets, which have been carefully managed." Caroline raised an eyebrow. "The estate's assets?" Lila nodded. "Yes. The property has significant value, and we can use some of that to fund the programs while we build up a steady income from donations and partnerships. I want to be transparent about this, though. I'm not looking to deplete the estate's resources, but I believe this is a necessary step to get the foundation off the ground." The room fell silent as the board members processed her words. Lila held her breath, waiting for a response. Finally, Caroline spoke. "I think this is a bold move, Mrs. Thompson, but I trust your judgment. If you believe this is the right way to go, then I support it." Lila felt a wave of relief wash over her. Caroline's approval meant a lot, but she knew the real work was still ahead. The board continued to discuss the details of the funding plan, and Lila remained focused, offering suggestions and making sure that the financial strategy was as solid as possible. By the end of the meeting, the board had approved the funding plan, and Lila felt a sense of accomplishment. But she also knew that this was just the beginning. She wasn't just managing money. She was building something far more important, a legacy that would impact the lives of countless families. As the meeting adjourned, Lila stood up, feeling a new sense of purpose. She had taken the first step in securing the future of the foundation, but there was so much more to be done. She had to make sure that the programs were implemented effectively, that the community knew about the opportunities available to them, and that the foundation's work reached as many people as possible. She looked out the window of the conference room, her eyes scanning the vast grounds of the estate. This was her new reality, leading a foundation, managing an estate, and caring for her children. It wasn't easy, but it was hers. And with each passing day, she grew more determined to make it work. Lila knew that the challenges would only get tougher, but she also knew that she was ready for whatever came next. The legacy of her husband, the estate, and the foundation would thrive because she was willing to fight for it. As she left the conference room and walked down the hallway, Lila couldn't help but feel proud. She had come a long way in a short time, and she was just getting started. Lila had spent the past few weeks immersed in the whirlwind of managing the estate and overseeing the foundation's initiatives. It felt as though time moved faster now, every day filled with meetings, phone calls, and decisions that weighed heavily on her shoulders. Despite her progress, there were moments when she still felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of her responsibilities. Yet, when she looked into the faces of her twins, seeing their innocent smiles, she knew there was no turning back. She had come too far, and there was no way she would give up now. Today was a particularly important day. It was the day of the first major fundraising event for the foundation. Lila had spent weeks preparing, working with her team, and reaching out to potential donors. She needed this event to succeed. The funds raised would provide vital resources for the programs she had worked so hard to implement. As she stood in front of the grand estate, watching as the final touches were added to the venue, Lila felt a surge of nervous energy. She had never been in charge of something this big before, but she refused to let her fear hold her back. She had a plan, and it was time to execute it. The guests began arriving, each one more prestigious than the last. The estate was filled with business leaders, philanthropists, and community influencers, all gathered to support the cause. Lila greeted each one with a smile, shaking hands and making small talk, all while keeping a careful eye on the proceedings. She couldn't afford any missteps. As the evening wore on, Lila could feel the tension building. She had worked tirelessly to ensure everything was perfect, but doubts crept into her mind. What if the donations didn't meet the goal? What if the board was disappointed with the outcome? Just as she was about to lose herself in her thoughts, Caroline, the lead trustee, approached her with a warm smile. "You're doing great, Lila," Caroline said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The guests are impressed, and the energy in this room is exactly what we need. You've built something special here." Lila gave her a grateful smile, but the pressure still hung heavy in her chest. The night wasn't over, and the biggest moment was yet to come, the live auction. She had worked with the event coordinator to secure some high-value items, including exclusive vacations and rare art pieces. The auction was where the bulk of the donations were expected to come from. When it was finally time, Lila took the stage, standing before the crowd with a microphone in her hand. She looked out at the sea of faces, all waiting for her to speak. The weight of their expectations was palpable, but she took a deep breath, reminded herself of her purpose, and began. "Thank you all for being here tonight. Your presence means more than you can imagine. This foundation was built on the belief that we can make a difference in the lives of others, whether it's providing a safe home for a family in need or giving a child the tools to succeed in school. But we cannot do this alone. We need your support. Tonight, as you bid on these incredible items, remember that every dollar goes directly to helping families in our community. You're not just buying an experience, you're changing lives." The room fell silent as she finished speaking. Lila could feel the weight of the moment, but she held her ground. She knew this was her chance to make a real impact, to turn the dream she had for the foundation into a reality. As the auction began, the bids came in fast and furious. The guests were excited, and the numbers kept climbing higher than Lila had hoped. She watched in awe as the support for the foundation grew before her eyes. It was happening. This event was a success. By the end of the evening, Lila stood at the front of the room, a smile on her face as the final totals were announced. The event had raised more than double the original goal. The foundation now had the funds to expand its programs and reach more families than ever before. As the last guests left the estate, Lila found herself standing alone in the foyer, her heart racing with a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had done it. The foundation was officially on its way to making a lasting impact, and she had proven to herself and everyone else that she was more than capable of leading it. But as the night came to a close, Lila couldn't help but think about what lay ahead. This was only the beginning. The real work had just begun, and there would be more challenges to face, more obstacles to overcome. But for the first time, she felt ready. She had found her strength, and she was determined to make sure that her husband's legacy and the future of the families they helped would be secured. Lila sat at the desk in her office, the soft hum of the estate's grand hallway filling the background. The events of the past weeks had left her exhausted but energized. The fundraising event had surpassed all expectations, and the foundation was poised for its next steps. Yet, as she stared out the window, She couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. She had come so far, but the future seemed uncertain. The pressure to keep pushing forward weighed heavily on her, but it wasn't just about the estate anymore. It was about making sure she stayed true to her husband's legacy. The success of the event had provided the foundation with the resources it needed, but now it was time to focus on the next phase, expanding the programs to reach more families. Lila knew she had to keep moving forward, but her mind was still torn. She had never been a person to shy away from challenges, but the idea of overseeing something this large, something that affected so many people, made her feel small at times. As she adjusted the papers in front of her, the door opened, and Caroline walked in, her usual calm demeanor reassuring. "I wanted to check in on how you're feeling after last night," Caroline said, sitting down across from Lila. "You did an incredible job. The foundation's success is a direct result of your leadership. You should be proud of what you've accomplished." Lila gave a small smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you, Caroline. It's just, there's still so much to do. I'm still figuring it all out." Caroline studied her for a moment before responding. "I can tell you've been working tirelessly. But remember, you don't have to do it alone. You have a whole team here, and we're all in this together. What you've done so far is amazing, and now you're in a position to help more people than you ever imagined. But don't forget to take a breath." Lila nodded, appreciating Caroline's words, but she knew she couldn't afford to stop now. The responsibility felt so much heavier with every passing day, and the pressure to succeed for the sake of the community weighed on her like a constant reminder. The staff had been incredible, working day and night to lay the foundation for the next programs, but Lila knew that in order to truly make a difference, she had to lead by example. "I just keep thinking about what my husband would have wanted," Lila said softly, her voice tinged with both sadness and determination. "He built this foundation with the idea of giving people a second chance, and I don't want to mess that up. But sometimes it feels like I'm in over my head." Caroline smiled warmly. "You're not in over your head. You're doing exactly what your husband would have wanted. He trusted you with this, and he knew you were the one who could carry it forward. You don't have to do everything on your own. Trust in the people around you. Trust in the team you've built." Lila's gaze turned toward the window once more, where the sun was beginning to set, casting a soft glow across the estate's expansive grounds. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Caroline's words settle in her chest. Maybe it wasn't about doing everything herself. Maybe it was about leading with a sense of purpose and letting others help her along the way. She had been so focused on her own doubts that she hadn't fully realized how much support she had. With the team by her side and the community rallying behind her, Lila knew she wasn't alone. She could do this. The next day, Lila met with the team to discuss the plans for the expansion. She listened intently as the team members shared their ideas, their excitement palpable. They were all passionate about making the foundation's vision a reality, and Lila could see the impact they were already having. The meeting was productive, and by the end, they had a clear roadmap for the next phase of the project. As she left the meeting, Lila felt a renewed sense of determination. She had always been a fighter, but now, she felt like she had a true purpose. The estate, the foundation, the community, they were all connected by one simple truth. They were in this together. And for the first time since taking over her husband's legacy, Lila believed that she was exactly where she needed to be. It wasn't going to be easy, but she knew she was ready for whatever came next. Lila stood on the balcony overlooking the estate, feeling the weight of the past months fall away. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow across the horizon. It had been a long journey, but Lila had finally come to a place where she could see the true impact of her work. The foundation was thriving. The programs were reaching families in need, and the estate had become a symbol of hope for so many. It wasn't perfect, and there were still challenges to overcome, but she had built something real, a legacy that would carry her husband's vision forward while also making a difference in her own way. She thought about how far she had come, from a widow left with nothing but a $5 inheritance to a woman who now led a thriving foundation that was changing lives. It hadn't been easy, but nothing worth having ever was. She had faced doubts, fears, and obstacles, but she had pushed through them, driven by a deep desire to honor the memory of the man she had loved and the future she wanted to create for her children. The foundation's success wasn't just measured in the amount of money it raised or the number of programs it had. It was measured in the lives it had touched, the mothers who had found jobs, the children who had access to education, and the families who had found hope when they had none. Every day, Lila saw the difference they were making, and it filled her with a sense of purpose. As the months passed, she had found a rhythm. The board of trustees had become a trusted ally, and the staff at the estate worked tirelessly to support the foundation's mission. Lila had learned to trust her instincts and rely on the team around her. She had stopped doubting herself and started believing in the vision she had for the future. She wasn't alone in this anymore. As she walked back into the estate, she saw her twins playing outside, their laughter echoing through the halls. They were growing up fast, and she couldn't help but feel proud of the family they had built, despite everything that had happened. They were her strength, her reason for fighting every day. Lila had learned that leadership wasn't just about making decisions. It was about making those decisions with compassion and understanding. She had learned that sometimes you had to let go of the past to embrace the future, and that no one could do it all alone. As she watched her children, she realized that she had done what she set out to do. She had built a life for them, one filled with hope and opportunity. She had honored her husband's legacy, but she had also created her own. The foundation wasn't just his, it was hers, too, and she had the power to shape its future. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but Lila was ready. She had come to understand that success wasn't just about the end result. It was about the journey, the lessons learned along the way, and the people you helped. The foundation had grown, but so had she. And in that moment, as she watched her twins run across the estate grounds, she knew she had made the right choice. She had built something meaningful. She had built something that would last. And most importantly, she had built a future for her family, a future filled with promise, possibility, and hope. In this powerful and inspiring story, we follow a widowed black mother who inherits nothing but $5. But her resilience and determination lead her on a journey of transformation. From the challenges she faces in the shadow of loss, she rises to lead a thriving foundation that helps families in need. This is not just another tale of hardship, but a story of triumph and hope, a perfect example of the Black stories that showcase strength and perseverance. As she navigates the complexities of managing her late husband's estate and foundation, she discovers her own leadership potential and begins to create a future for herself and her children. The journey is not easy, but through every setback, she finds strength and support in her community. These Black stories serve as a reminder that no matter the circumstances, every individual has the power to rewrite their own destiny. With the success of her foundation and the trust of those around her, she proves that even the darkest of times can be overcome with hope and determination. This Black story is a testament to the power of legacy, the importance of community, and the relentless pursuit of a better future. As she steps into her new role, she finds not just a new life, but a new purpose that will resonate for generations to come. Black stories like hers inspire others to believe that anything is possible, even when the odds are stacked against you.